Oh, you did trip?
Good. Long trip.
Yeah.
Left on Saturday, came back on Saturday. Long trip.
Where were you?
Austin. Tomorrow I gotta go to Milwaukee. You get up at 3 o'clock, so don't make this too late, please.
That's his way of saying,
I'll
no-
step on it.
that's
for
his
you.
way of saying no pressure.
Gotta catch up. You gotta catch up 6 o'clock plane.
But I'm fine. Stop, put it off.
I know, but I wanted to
That's
get
her.
used to it.
Only around in my ear.
Yeah, but you know,
Keep me
do what you
posted.
gotta do.
Yeah, I will.
I really appreciate it. I don't want to bug you.
This is not the red eye.
He said he might come in August.
Beat you up for days, don't they?
Oh, they do,
Well,
They just sort of catch up. Yeah.
I was hoping he would. But
especially when it's overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, geez.
he,
So I don't know how many
was taking
Those are just nasty.
dialysis 3 times.
Sure are.
On the tube.
Yeah.
I did take your advice, you know, that's off the agenda, but it's gonna raise its ugly head.
My tailbone is sore, so Peter thinks I need a deeper seat.
And I appreciate you just being open to the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure this. I grabbed your stuff.
As soon as I can,
Thank
I
you.
will though.
Fair enough.
I was
Fair
getting
enough,
mine,
yeah.
so I grabbed it.
Thank you. Fair enough.
Couple years.
That's just okay.
All right.
Hope you don't
The
mind.
hour
Don't
being
mind it.
7:03 on Monday, July 26th, I'd like to call to order City Council meeting, the City of Laconia. Prior to beginning our meeting, I'd ask Councilor Susi if he would be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor. We're joined at the council table this evening by City Clerk Cheryl Hebert, and I'd ask if you would please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Littman,
Present.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Hamel,
Present.
Counselor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to number 7 on your agenda, which is the acceptance of minutes from the previous meetings. Regular meeting minutes of July 12th, 2021. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. There are no consent and action items. Right now would be item number 9 on our agenda, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If anyone has a comment to make, either in person or online, check in with us, or please step up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and we will be limiting comments, as usual, to 3 minutes.
Well, I'm Marie Bradley. I'm here with Mary Smith.
How about this, Marie? Would you pull the microphone down, maybe step in front so we can hear you better and
Okay.
help with the clerk? Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm Marie Bradley. I'm here with my husband Charles Bradley and Mary Smith. We're residents of Lafayette Street. We're here to present you with a petition from many of the residents on our street. And I'll give you the copy.
I'd ask you to hand it to the clerk. That'd be just terrific. Thank you very much.
I would just like to read a brief thing. These are the pictures of what our street looks like.
Would you like to circulate them so people can look at them or just stand there with them?
Please,
How about
please.
you hand those over to the clerk and you go to your seat? We'll return them to you the moment we finish with them. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Go right ahead, Marie.
Okay. We're here tonight because the residents of Lafayette Street have been taken advantage of and ignored since the work ended on the water and sewer line replacement project last summer. During the construction, and everybody knows how hot it was last year, we put up with constant noise, clouds of dirt, trucks going up and down our street. We counted on the city and its public works department to make things right with our lawns and driveways when the construction was complete. We started this petition when we thought the only issue was the condition of people's lawns and the sub-lawns. They look like, as Mary said, tobacco growing. And we started to go door to door. We put together a petition, went door to door. every house that answered their door said the same thing. They were very unhappy with what had taken place, and they could not get any help from the Public Works Department. We were told we had the tobacco-looking stuff growing because we didn't water our lawns. I know for a fact, I watered, my neighbors watered. Everybody expressed complete frustration, and I would just like to list some of the things that they said. And
I would ask you, Marie, that you're over the 3 minutes right now. So if you can, if this is all in writing,
Yes,
and everyone has a copy of it
they do.
already, do they?
They do. And
Okay, that's
there
terrific,
was
because I'm sure
a
they'll all
couple
read it.
things at the very end. I wanted to tell you, every house we went to, no one declined signing. The only people that didn't sign were people that maybe were on vacation or away at the time. We went back several times. And the other thing is, we ran into a man from Warren Street who told us, I wish we had a petition for Warren Street because we're having the same problem. So I hope that we can get some remedy to what's going on. It looks terrible. People are just starting to cut the grass now, or the weeds. It's hydro weeding, it's not hydro seeding. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you'll do something.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record, sir, and I'd remind you there's a 3-minute limit.
Thank you. My name's Charles Bradley, and as everybody knows, Marie worked for the city for over 20 years for 3 or 4 city managers, and she's probably one of the best employees that the city ever had, and I think Bob Hamill would second that. And it's just a disgrace. It's a disgrace. You can see the pictures. You can see the pictures, and I can tell you there are 72 people taking 2 people per house on Lafayette Street that are madder than wet hornets about how they've been treated in this situation. And we would have had no idea if we hadn't gone out to collect this petition. And I just want to point out, one of the people, or 2, said that if it had been Shore Drive, this wouldn't have happened. And it didn't happen over there. So I thought maybe you should understand exactly how many. We have 38 properties on Lafayette Street. Their assessed value is close to $10 million. And we pay roughly $1,140,000 in taxes. And we get treated like dirt. Give me a break, guys. You asked for the job, and then you sit there and don't do it. Some of the other comments. I can't get to them. Lawns were torn up, some more than others. At the end of the project, soil was put down. I think Marie read that. Sublawns, the length of the street. You can see the pictures. The pictures. In case we're on TV, I just want the other citizens in the city of Laconia to see how they can expect to be treated unless they live on Shore Drive. And am I talking through my? No, because when we collected signatures, ran into a guy who I thought was the owner. He was backing out of his driveway. He lives on Warren Street. And you should have heard the story he told. So, this, I don't know. You haven't done your job. You don't deserve the position you have unless you do something about this. And I think the Public Works Director should be disciplined, if not fired.
Fair enough, sir. It's 7:11. Your 3 minutes are up. Wrap it up. That'd be great. Thank you very much for
I'm
sharing your
done.
thoughts. Yes, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Lynn O'Connor with eXp Realty of O'Connor Group, and I'm here on behalf of my seller, Vern Fitz, who lives at 59 Woodland Avenue. I have some photos.
Are you a resident of Laconia?
I am not.
Okay, in the property and you're
in
discussing
La-
is,
59 Woodland Avenue in Laconia, right behind the high school football field. So I'm just here on behalf of him at this point. He asked me to be here. He's traveling because of the fact that we are losing sales that have been under agreement, because it has been noted that the embankment on the city lot that the town of Laconia owns, which is adjacent to his parcel, is starting to crumble down. You'll see from the photos, the earth is giving way. It's ending up in his garage against the edge of it. There's boulders down there, and part of the tree is giving away in the root system, and it's also rotting out the inside of the garage. I was there again today showing it, and again, it brought up us comments. And there's an email from a realtor with Coldwell Banker saying that our people were backing out because they were of major concern dealing with the embankment. So I'm here on his behalf asking if someone can look into that and remedy the situation so it does not affect the sale of his property.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there's a vacant lot.
Sir, would you introduce yourself and give
My
us
name is
your name?
Michael Lehman, and
Whereabouts do you live, Michael?
I live right there at 59 Woodland Ave. I used to live at 60 Woodland Ave, and I'm pretty much helping them sell the property. And there's a lot between, I don't know the exact address, between 59 and 63 that the city owns, that they were going to decide if they're going to make an entrance in it. The lot's owned by the town of Laconia, this lot. There's a little lot between 59 and I believe it's 63, not exactly. So this lot that she was just talking about is owned by the town. When you guys moved the football field over, you guys thought about making that the access to the football field, and you declined. You went a different avenue. So that lot that she's talking about, the embankment that comes down, is owned by the town of Laconia.
Thank you very much for your
And what
comments.
is that lot number?
It is lot number 408-247-18.
You got that, Cheryl?
Thank you. Anyone else with any comments for items not on the agenda this evening? Anyone online, Mr. Smith? Thanks. Moving on along to item number 11, nominations, appointments, and elections. We have first up, Deborah Williams seeking reappointment as a regular member of the Conservation Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2024. Currently, there are no vacant regular member positions on the Conservation Commission and 1 vacant alternate member position. So it seems to me we'd be looking for a motion to appoint Deborah Williams. I'm confused by this. If there are no vacant regular member positions on the Conservation Commission and 1 alternate member position, yet the motion is to appoint Deborah Williams to a regular member position.
It's her position.
I think there's no additional vacancies
Right.
besides
There are no
this one.
additional vacancies.
Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right. So I'd be looking right now for a motion to move to appoint Deborah Williams to a regular member position of the Conservation Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2024. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Williams, for your willingness to serve. Item number 11B, which is Roland Mayhew seeking reappointment to a regular member position on the Zoning Board of Adjustment to a 3-year term. Right now, I'll be looking for a move to reappoint Mr. Mayhew to a regular member position on the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2024. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayhew. Under 11C, which is the appointment of Rob Moore, Assistant Planning Director, as a commissioner on the Lakes Region Planning Commission. Be looking right now for a motion to appoint Rob Moore, Assistant Planning Director, as an alternate commissioner on the Lakes Region Planning Commission Transportation Technical Advisory Committee for a term expiring at the end of June 2023. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your willingness to serve. Item number 11D on our agenda, which is the reappointment of Krista Larson, Assistant Director of Public Works, as a Commissioner of the Lakes Region Planning Commission for the Transportation Advisory Committee. So right now, I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Krista Larson, Assistant Director of Public Works, as a Commissioner on the Lakes Region Planning Commission, Transportation Technical Advisory Committee, for a term expiring at the end of June 2023. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'd ask to signify by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. And that motion passes. Thank you very much, Krista. Finally, item number 11D, which is the reappointment. Whoa. Bad. Finished with 11D. Public hearings under item 13A, which has been removed from the agenda. Now we're up to Mayor's report, and just have a couple of items I'd like to speak to this evening. I want to say first and foremost that a number of issues have been of concern to constituents who reached out to us. One of them was the condition of a park. One of it was a roadway under construction. And I think a number of us probably got a couple of phone calls from some folks who are asking for some explanation or some insights. I want to say thanks to the city manager and Krista Larson and Amy Lovisek for responding in a timely fashion to some areas that some public had concern about. I just want to thank City Manager Scott Myers for meeting myself and other councilors at one area of concern within the city. And I just would like to say, and I think these are suggestions for process improvements and opportunities for our own improvement, both as a councilor and as the city. But certainly increasing the level of communication. I think we find out about some things when we're in the midst of a bit of a crisis. What's going on with a particular road, or why is a certain park closed up and broken down? And we sort of get to it a little, we're in reactive mode as opposed to proactive mode. And I think that is my responsibility to some extent to be more responsive. But I think it's probably all of our responsibilities when we look at some of the committees that we have and some of the things that maybe we can improve upon. So, you know, I would think certainly, and I would expect certainly, and I know Scott Myers has been very responsive in this regard, is that when we run into situations where we're going to disrupt a roadway, even if it's for 8 hours, it has a significant impact on a lot of small businesses. Better communication, better signage. It's something that we went over last year, and I think we were all a little bit disappointed in as the construction season moved on. You know, I was hoping that we would get to a point where people wouldn't be reaching out and complaining about lack of signage or the lack of direction. So I hope going forward we can continue to improve upon this process and realize that the impact it has on, you know, even a gas station. And when you shut a gas station down essentially for a good portion of the day, it really affects the bottom line. And certainly during our busy season here in the city and in this whole community, it's important that even part of a day being shut down or having an impact that affects these folks. And I like to remind myself, and I think those of us who have been in some form of customer service business in our life realize that taxpayers really are our customers. You know, they can't shop someplace else if they don't find our services or our products acceptable, because they're here right now in the city. But I think we have to think of them as valued customers in this city, valued taxpayers, and that when they have some of these concerns, we should try to be a little bit more proactive. And I speak as much for myself as anybody. And I think the city, and that's just to let other people know in the city, that we've taken these concerns very seriously. We've tried to respond accordingly, and certainly your city government here and their operations has taken it very seriously, and we seek to always find ways to improve. Also going forward, maybe we should have a follow-up conversation just about some of the committees too, about, I think we were in a reactive position when it came to what was going on at the Weirs and some of the signage there. And when a couple of us went over to the Parks and Recs hearing the other night and just listened to what people were saying at the committee hearing, it's not that the Parks and Recs Commission, they were not overreactive. I'm not quite sure they had the level of input that they have right now from local businesses and how some of these regulations and new rules might affect them. Now that they have them, they have indicated a desire to maybe take another look at some of the things that they have required at the beach in particular. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. They can in fact maybe figure out how can we improve the situation here and still make sure that we are a welcoming community to people who want to come and use our beaches, and also encourage people to be as responsible as they should be as adults coming to use a public amenity that we all have a certain level and responsibility for keeping in good shape. So those were a couple of things, and perhaps just most importantly, that it's been on my mind, and there've been a couple of articles in the newspaper, and I hate to say that the articles in the newspaper drive our discussion here. I don't think they do, but sometimes they remind us we have a state school property. We've got a state school property issue that's brewing out there. I think we all share to some extent the idea that that piece of property is really transformational in this city. This is a piece of property owned by the state, run by the state, built upon by the state for 100 years or so. And that I think when we look at that property, we may all have different visions of what we'd like to see there. But I think, make no mistake about it, it can transform the city in so many respects, whether it's mixed commercial use and housing, whether it's a campus for medical care. I mean, there are a lot of, I think, really good ideas being discussed out there. And as we know, we have two groups on a parallel path, maybe ending up in different destinations. One being the Lakeshore Redevelopment Commission, and I know councilors have been present and active and interested in what's going on. And I think we all share a conclusion that they've done very good work and enhanced the value of the property. And they've been very responsible, and I think they have been very, and properly so, concerned about the city of Laconia and what becomes of this property. They have led with that, and I always appreciate Commissioner Bald, Bob Cheney, and Rusty McClare, and the other commissioners putting the interest of Laconia first here. On the other parallel path, or the parallel path, is certainly what's contained in HB 2 of the budget, which allows the governor and the executive council to move towards selling this property to a private entity without going through the usual process of surplus property in the state. My concern in this, and I've said it before, and I think a number of us share this, is that the proper development for its highest and best use means developing the entire parcel if possible. Making it, if you're not going to build on it, certainly preserving the green space with a long-term intent, not just developing the frontage along the roads and putting commercial businesses that I know we'll all end up using, but really I'm not quite sure we need just a gas station there, or just a coffee shop, or just a fast food joint. Although all of those are good in so many respects, the fact is, up the hill is really where the property needs to be developed and needs to be cleaned. And I think we've all probably been quite pleased that we don't have to do the remediation that perhaps we were once feared there. We can remediate, and that property will be prime real estate property, but it needs an awful lot of investment. And I'd like to think of whoever sells this property, whether it's Lakeshore Redevelopment and going along that track, or whether it's on the governor's side and the executive council, and whomever they sell it to, I'd like to think that it's consistent with our own long-term economic plans in this city and our long-term development plans in this city. I think it's something that we all need to be on our toes about, and we need to be cautious here. It doesn't need to be politicized. It just, I think, needs to be what's best for our city. and who will listen to us when we speak on behalf of the constituents we represent about a piece of property that is very important to the future of this city. So I wanted to just bring that and keep that on our radar going forward, certainly as a council, as a city. I guess that would essentially conclude my remarks right now. Thank you. Moving along to item number 16, which is council comments. I'd ask if anyone has any councilors have any comments. Now would be the appropriate time. Councilor Cheney, nice to have you tonight.
Thank you. And if I might just follow on your comments, I think it might be a good idea if we asked our counselor, our governor's counselor, to attend and give us an update on what's going on in the council. I did speak to him some months ago, but I would like to hear where he's at and what I would hope he would have some extra authority in the council as it relates to the sale of that property. I'm sure the mayor knows, and many of the councilors know, the commission still has a budget and is in the process of spending money on improving that property as we await what the governor may do with it. So the long and the short, perhaps we could ask the governor's counselor to join us. And
I think that's a great idea.
okay,
Yeah. Would you like to reach out to him, or I'm happy to do it, or
I
whoever?
would think it would be better if it came from the mayor's office.
I'm happy to do that.
Would Mr. Ball also be a good person, or is that?
I wouldn't object to seeing George Ball there. He can give us some idea of what's left to be done, which would be nice to know as well. The other comment, or actually the one comment I wanted to make tonight, was I was wondering if we could ask Parks and Rec to give us a compendium of statutes and regulations and whatever that control our treatment of the lake's edges in the city. I'm sure most of you remember that Pearly Pond and I have had some concerns over the last year or two, and I'm not real pleased with how it's been mowed this year. I'd ask all of you to take a ride by and just see if it looks like what you remember over the years. The other place that I'm concerned about and recently started to get concerned is O-Pee-Chee Park. The trees are growing up so you can't see the lake. And now they have, it was there last year, but now it's more pronounced, a large growth of some sort of elephant grass or something that extends out through the beach. And I'd like to know why we can't do something about that. Now, it may well be that there are statutes and ordinances and whatever that prevent us, but I'd like to see them, and I'd like to have a discussion about them here if we could.
Perhaps we can put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Mr. Myers?
We will see what we can do, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Susan, Councilor Cheney. Councilor Hamel.
Thank you. I just want to bring up something that Charlie and Marie brought up about Lafayette Street. I can't disagree with them. I've asked several times, that we take a look at that, which the city did do. They have been up there. They posted it off so people wouldn't park on the sub lawns and all that kind of stuff. But the condition of the lawn on the sub lawns and also people's personal property is not very good. I mean, it's nothing I would want or anybody here would want. And Gerard Street, it's not in my ward, but it's the same way. There is very little grass growing. It's mostly all weeds. The other thing I'd like to ask Scott, Canal Street for the upcoming weekend. Have you heard anything more of when that sidewalk would be cemented and that trailer moved, because it's still there today?
Yeah, so I believe the trail, I think you've got two trailers there, one in the alleyway and one on the street. The one on the street is going to remain there, but I think you were copied on the email that We coordinated with CCI, who is doing the residential component, with Bonnet Page and Stone, who did the theater component, and Public Works, who was down doing some work here the other day. And that will all be extremely walkable and finished and tapered down and swept in advance of Thursday night.
The one on the street is right in front of the exit door. Is that going to be moved
I think
space over?
if they haven't moved it already, the plan is to move it down one spot.
Okay, great. My other question refers to the state school property. I think we need to make the state aware, or whoever might be buying this parcel, to see what we can do to also allow parking for Robbie Mills on that piece of property across the street from Eastman, on Eastman Shore Road. To the left there, that's where people park to go to the game. If that isn't there, it's going to be pretty tough for people to show up. So I think we need to have a discussion with whoever to see if part of that can be, I don't think we need the whole field to the woods, but encompass some of that property.
I think over the many years that the Lakeshore Redevelopment Commission has been meeting, they're very well aware of that and cognizant of that. As the mayor pointed out with the language in HB2, that language bypasses the whole commission. Basically, the governor, with approval of a majority of executive council, can sell that. So I think those are some of the issues where I think, leading to Councilor Cheney's point of, we need to get that on Councilor Kenny's radar, that these are things that are important to Laconia, not only with what's developed on the site, but things like parking and that type of stuff. So that's the challenge of the language that passed in HB2.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott.
We do, if I might just interrupt, we do have a piece of property across Main Street that they're looking for, hoping to acquire from us. We have a 99-year lease.
Yeah.
Maybe we can think about whether we want that for ourselves or to swap it for that field across from Robbie Mills.
Yeah. We
I just-
also own the 99-year lease at the end of North Main and 106, that triangular piece.
Yes.
So
I guess my point is, I think we got some negotiating room for us.
okay. So I get just, sorry.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I just curious, Scott, what are we going to do or with Lafayette Street? Or, I mean, what's the next step?
Just heard the folks who spoke tonight, and I know that I shared this with the council when it was brought up. I think we've been out there twice this year. First time, it was a complaint that we didn't put up posts and strings to keep people from driving on it. We went back out, we graded it, we put those up, we seeded it a second time, and then we hit a significant drought. I mean, certainly we would encourage people to, throw a little water around their area. I can't speak to who did and who didn't. We will go take a look at it if that's what the council would like us to do, but we have done it twice at this point.
I know you have. But I'd like to see, depending on what the other councilors say, that both Girard Street and Lafayette Street get a second look at or a third look at.
Okay.
Plus also in front of, and I forgot about this, in front of 80 Lafayette Street, in the road is a manhole cover. And on the back side of it, if you're heading up, it's sinking quite a bit.
Yeah, we know about it. We're working that issue.
Okay. Busby's gonna go back and fix that.
So perhaps, Scott, we can find a time in the coming days to take a tour.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Just
Scott.
let me know. Thanks. Go right ahead, Counselor Susie, Counselor Haynes next.
My question is twofold. One with the state school. Okay. If they do sell that property, it's still under the city's planning board and regulations for zoning and all that. Does that still apply? I just want to make sure that's understood, because whoever the potential buyer is, I'm sorry, the state doesn't overrule that, do they?
I don't believe so. Are you suggesting the historic overlay district might go that far?
No, but I sure wouldn't want it to.
Funny.
Counselor Susie, but you raise a good point.
No, my
Yeah.
point is that if the state sells it to whoever, and I mean, I wish it was us that was going to read the receipt of the state if I had my way. But if the state sells it to some whatever entity, okay, does that entity then come up in front of our planning board, in front of the council to do everything that's going to be coming next? Water commission, sewer, all that other kind of stuff. And one of the things I know that Wes has talked about before, and it's come to us a number of times, I'd want to make sure that whatever improvements they do, especially with roads, are city approved to be accepted by the city. Okay? None of this stuff, like we've got problems now in certain areas of the city where the roads are not accepted and we've got to take care of, not saying we don't want to, garbage and this and that and everything else. I want it all accepted to the city standards. Are we going to be able to bring that forth?
I think they have to do
Good
that.
question. I would defer to the city manager on that, a little more depth of knowledge than I have.
So they would certainly be subject to local land regulations, absolutely. The state selling it does not then supersede that anything can happen there. So they would work within our existing zoning regulations. It would have planning board authority for approval for development. I believe, and I have to double check that, and maybe Councilor Littman was a part of it, if that got rezoned for that performance district. So there's some flexibility as far as density and stuff if the intent of what's being built there in the character and design and all that stuff is a positive for the city. The planning board has that authority. Any of the items as far as water installation, sewer, that would probably be handled mostly administratively through technical review committee and the various departments putting in, as they do right now on any development. It goes to comments, everybody submits whatever, there's a technical review committee. Not saying 100% nothing would come before the city council, but I would think at this point that the city council would truly not be having a role in that. This is a land use city staff through water, sewer, public works, fire department for life safety things going through and technical review, but definitely subject to our existing zoning regs.
Okay. And one last thing, okay? And I don't know if there'd be any, and this is not, I'm not trying to be funny, but can we get a right of first refusal?
Probably.
It's always been a thought of mine, so I figured I'd put it out there. I'm not saying when Mr. Kenny, when Executive Councilor Kenny comes, I would definitely ask that question.
Well, I think that might have to be put into statute, but I'm not sure. I don't know if we could do it at this
I'm
point.
just
It's
asking
a
the
good question though, but I don't know. So
Wasn't it a long time ago? Wasn't that, I think that was in there. Because when they were looking to sell it for a certain amount of money, and there was a buyer that Laconia would have the first right.
I don't remember. I know the county had the right to buy it for the state's appraised value back in the day, and then anybody else, it was 10 million. And we offered exactly what it was offered to for the county, and we didn't get a response, and that goes back probably 8 or 9 years. With regard to a first refusal, I guess let me pose a different question. Do we have the 10 or 15 or $20 million to invest in that site for brownfields cleanup of those buildings and running the infrastructure in there in order to then develop the site? So I'm just kind of saying, maybe be careful what we wish for, because if somebody else is buying it, they're responsible for the infrastructure and the cleanup. Ultimately, the state is responsible at the end of the day for any cleanup out there because they were the owner and not saying they polluted it, but that's, I think, that's the.
They polluted it.
That's the term. So whether it's asbestos or whether it's something in the ground or whether it's chemicals, not saying that's on this site, but if it's a brownfield site, the ultimate responsibility lies with the person who owned it at the time and who caused that, and that would be the state under the
All I'm
situation.
saying is that I just wanted to,
Use it.
I know sometimes people are afraid to open up their mouth, and I guess I was not. And I just want to bring it up for, at least it's under thought.
thank you. Are you going to weigh in on this issue?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead, Councilor.
So I guess,
Go ahead. No.
so procedurally, it'd be good to do a side-by-side of what normal acquisition is versus the HB2, just to make sure we fully understand the steps in the process and what our timeframes are for different things. I think inviting Councilor Kenny into a conversation, I think it's a good idea. I think that we need to understand where we can have influence and where we can't, and to not wait till the last minute to try to exercise that influence is an important thing to try to shape it. We did go through the exercise of looking at whether we could make an offer, and our offer was
in the 2 million something range, with the understanding that we would have to pick up the costs of remediation if we were the purchaser of the property. And so, I think that, the fact that the governor gets to make a recommendation to the executive council, really it bifurcates some steps that would ordinarily occur for surplus. But on the other hand, it may also work to an advantage of that a party that is looking to develop won't have to wait years for a sale to go through. Now, that's not to say that it won't work against us, but I'm not saying that it's a totally a negative either. So it could work out, assuming it's developed as you talked about, Mayor. We don't want just frontage developed and that type of thing. But this has gone back and forth for a long time. And if we get if the state negotiates with somebody that's going to do something that's in keeping with the way we'd like to see the property developed, it isn't necessarily the worst thing that could happen to us. It actually could be better because it would happen sooner. But that said, I think we need to understand more concretely what the differences are in the procurement process and what our opportunities are to influence it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Councilor Lippman. Scott, I would wonder if council might be able to lay that out for us without taking up too much time, referring it to legal counsel as to what the traditional steps are in declaring surplus property and moving it through and selling it versus what's in HB2.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that's a pretty simple answer. It goes through a process referred to as CORD, and they look at the land and long-term use, and does the state have a reason to hang on to it? And it pretty much goes through a checklist of all various state departments of who may have a need for it going forward, and is there a reason? And if not, I think that's really the driver. I think one of the differences between HB2 and what was happening with the Lakeshore Redevelopment Commission is we did have two specific Laconia appointed representatives along with other people from the region serving on there. So we have Chris Shumway and Peter Spanos, and then I know a lot of counselors attend. Dean Trefethen attends from the planning office, Rusty McClear just down the road in Meredith, another member in Guilford. So there were a number of folks who were very Lakes region centered. And that's where I think it's a great idea to get Councilor Kenny. So we make sure that ultimately, if he's going to be voting, and a lot of times I think other executive counselors will look to the counselor whose district something is in for the lead on what they may be thinking, because I'm not saying it won't be a state impact, but if it's someone who's down in the southern tier or the seacoast, does what happens up here with a piece of property really make a difference in their district? And, obviously we hope they represent all of the state, but a lot of times they will look to the council or where the property is or wherever the issue is to take the lead on something. So I think it's a very good idea to bring Councilor Kenny in.
Just to follow up to
Councilor Lippman.
you're all right with that? So I think the thing is, you can't wait till it gets to the council table, because then it becomes, they don't get to negotiate at the council table what it is. So I think getting what our interests are out there earlier is important, and not having a sense based on was reported in the media that someone is circling, if you will, to purchase the property. We probably don't have time to waste.
I don't think so. And perhaps I'd be interested in your thoughts as well, whether we should reduce this to writing and draft a letter to Councilor Kenny as well, not only requesting he come to our next meeting if he can, but also laying out some of our concerns moving forward.
If I could, I think that if we could administratively, having listened to what the council had to say at the table, here's to formulate, here's a checklist of things that if there's a proposal coming forward that we would expect would be addressed, I think would be good, so that he could do some work for us ahead of time.
All that properties within the city boundaries. We should have some say in something.
Absolutely, yes.
I think that, I think there's some things that go without saying that can be said, right? But there are other things too that are not necessarily within, just that. So
Could we work on drafting something over the next week or so? Thank you very much. Councilor Haynes, go right ahead.
It's on a completely different subject, but I don't know if the other councilors want to weigh in or not, but do we need to look at our policy on sublawns? It seems to me that every time we have construction and what raises its ugly heads is the grass doesn't grow. The taxpayers are upset about the grass not growing nowhere. You know, I don't know if Wes wants to weigh in, but do we try to do it as far as reseeding? When is the best time instead of, you know, right in the middle of the summer? We don't know what was, if the weed seeds were in the loam, and it just seems that this causes a problem. And then the minute we get the grass to grow, cars park on it.
Fair enough. Counselor Hamel.
Going back to the state school, I think it's also for, that they be known that for the betterment of Laconia, whatever properties buy this or what goes there should be taxable property. So I think that needs to be made aware also.
I can just say, I'm intimately aware of what it costs to clean up one of those facilities up there. And actually, I only cleaned up half of one. And it was $700,000 just to get the asbestos out. And fix the roof was more. So, I mean, there's a lot of expense there that we want to, be careful, as Henry said, what we wish for, because it could be frightfully expensive to the city if we. But I also agree with Councilor Susi that we want to be sure whoever ultimately gets it is aware they need to clean that property up.
Sure. Thank you, Counselor. Any other council comments this evening? Counselor Lippman.
Just on the sublawn issue, I mean, you could have planted the best grass seed with the best loam and you have a rainstorm that washes it out, right?
Mhm.
So I think let's just simplify this. Let's just fix what the concern is by doing a reseeding and, get it to where it's a reasonable level of condition. I don't think it's anybody's fault. It could be, as you said, there could have been weed in the loam or what have you. It's just, try to get it back to somewhere where it was close to where we started the construction. It's not an unreasonable ask.
It seems like it's our obligation. If we have damaged it in the furtherance of working on our roads, we probably have an obligation to bring it back to its, fair condition that it was beforehand or better.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if people choose to park on the grass, it would drive me
Ain't gonna
crazy.
help.
But you can't stop it in so many respects unless you ticket. But that's all you can do. So go right ahead.
And I agree with Mark. I think we need to look at sublawn issues. I mean, we've fought this thing since Armin was around, and what are we going to do with sublawns? I've been basically opposed to them for I don't know how many years because of this. And you'll see a sublawn that they put in it's a foot wide. Why? It doesn't make any sense. Just pave it. Yeah, they're an issue. There's no doubt about it. So,
Thank you very much, Councilor Hamel.
thank you.
Yes, and so moving right along now, after council comments, we're on committee reports. Any committee reports from councilors this evening? Councilor Hamel.
I have no committee report, but I would like to schedule at our next council meeting, which is August 9th. And I would like to put that under presentations, and it will be for a discussion amongst all the council members about the parking garage. We need to come to a decision next month for sure. And I've asked Wes to gather whatever materials he's had, and even with the new Turner Group, what they are suggesting. And we'll put that on the presentation so everybody in the council can hear everything together. Okay? Is that okay, Scott? Could you do that?
Yeah, just clarifying. I'd like to have Wes present information. I think it's premature to have a particular company come in and speak.
No, I'm
this
not
is-
asking for a
Okay,
company.
just clarifying, because
No, no.
whatever we do has to be subject to our bid process and going out. So Wes certainly has information that was provided by the
That's all I'm
Turner
looking
Group.
for.
Okay, perfect.
It's just material
That's
to
fine.
give handouts to the council so they can see and go from there.
Just making sure I understood the request.
So that'll be on the calendar for the 9th of August. Thank you very much, Councilor Hamel. Councilor Lippman.
was not able to make the last council meeting. I don't know if there was an action or a path set up with respect to the historic district.
It was voted down.
Correct. And then our plan was to start to work on something that we could accept. I guess, where are we with that?
I think that the language needed to be refined as well as the proposed district. I don't know if we've made any steps forward at this point to further that. That's where we are. So certainly follow up after at some point here and talk about it.
That brings up one more question. I'm sorry.
Are we still on council comments?
Oh, no.
Let's go right ahead.
I was just wondering, when planning department presented their budget, we asked them, what kind of language that was vague in the Airbnb things we passed. And Dean said there was a few here and there. So I'm just wondering if he's been, trying to clarify those things and bring it to the council.
So per Councilor Cheney's request a meeting or two ago, Dean is scheduled for your agenda on the 9th. So you are packing a very full agenda. So eat your Wheaties that morning or something, because you've asked for a lot. But Dean is all set to be presenting, and he can certainly provide some areas where he thinks language needs clarification. He'll bring you current updates as to how many folks have registered, how many we think out there have not registered. He's interviewed a couple of firms right now that he can speak to the cost and the services that they bring, and
Thank you.
do that for you in 2 weeks.
I would encourage Bob, if we can put the parking garage off to the second meeting in August. That's a pretty significant presentation there. We will not put it off any further. I understand it's a priority for you, and it should be for all of us, but I'm wondering if we might be able to push that to the second meeting.
Could we reverse it? I mean, the parking garage, I think, is a bigger issue, honestly, than the.
I mean, we got to give
I agree.
Public Works some definite answer here next month.
Gonna can
I-
down the road too long.
Yeah, I mean, we've
you
been
like to
waiting to
flip that?
see if we were going to get any monies from the government for the COVID
Exactly.
stuff. And it looks like that's two of the applications, I guess you could say, both fell through. So it's on
Tony's
us.
gonna have dollars maybe that.
He's got to use his microphone.
I'm happy to, based on what other people's thoughts, I'm happy to move Dean's presentation to the second meeting, if that's acceptable, and presentation on the parking garage to August 9th.
We'll do that. I'll just confirm with Dean that he's not on a day off or a vacation week there, but we'll make
I mean,
him happen.
I can't see that it's going to take a whole long time to do the parking garage. I mean, we all know the basics of it, what the cost is, although, we have a few years of inflator there. But
I'm just thinking about my limited attention span.
sounds good.
Just need a little breather. Thank you for being accommodating. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any liaison reports? Or do we? have a
Just
committee
I
report? Sorry.
feel like there's, and we don't need to decide at this moment. I think we need to come back, maybe between you and the manager, talking about how we get back to doing what we said we'd do on the historic district.
Sometime in September.
So Dean and I have chatted after that meeting. He's going to go back and look at some of the language and work with the committee a little bit. I suggested in a positive manner that we reach out to a couple of the people who spoke, who identified what they thought were to be very vague or ambiguous or gray area language in there, and just see if they're willing to at least just put a highlighter to what they think is vague. And if they want to take an extra step to say, and this might be something that could be a solution. Again, not trying to make them do the work, but there were a handful of people who thought, and I think there could be a team leader or two in the downtown that they could choose to say, here, here, and here, and at least help us better address what their concerns are, rather than us doing what we think is the response and having them say, well, you missed this over here, or you didn't go far enough. So we're looking to do a collaborative effort, but that's something that is in the works.
Okay, I'm happy to be involved in this and work with him if we're looking to put together some folks from the council to discuss this and move it forward for discussion's sake and back before the council. So if you can keep me posted, I'm happy to be involved. Thank you. Councilor Cheney.
I attended the meeting right after our vote here and outlined for the committee some of the areas of concern I had, and I suspected others did. And I would like to, on the record, say that my major concern is when you start to read the statutory language that's referred to in our ordinance, you suddenly see they have the right to hire staff. They have the right to expend grants and any funds they may collect, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not opposed to that as long as we all know that exists and we don't end up a year or two from now suddenly finding out there are things in their authority that we hadn't realized. I know we've certainly heard folks talk about what color paint and what size doorknobs. And I think that runs along the same lines as this. Somebody needs to go through that and make it more secure, more.
Wordsmith it and tighten it up a bit so we understand.
And the geographic scope, I think, is also an issue.
Absolutely.
Significant, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. That was concluding liaison reports, I believe. Committee reports and liaison reports, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Number 19, citizens request to comment on current agenda items. There's a current agenda item that a member of the public would like to speak to. Now would be the appropriate time. And I'll look to you, Mr. Smith, if there's anyone online who's interested in speaking up. Thank you. Scott, if it's acceptable to you, I'd like to move item 21B under new business ahead of the city manager's report. I see we have two people sitting here. That be okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So that's number 19 on their agenda. Under new business, which is item 21, we're going to move 21B to address, take that right now, if you would. And I see this is a request to declare a portion of Rotary Park as surplus. I see Jared Gumet and Karen Pryor in the audience. Welcome. It's nice to have you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. City Manager Myers, thank you for accommodating us. We appreciate it. Good evening and thank you. I am Karen Pryor. I am the Executive Director of the Belknap Mill. Jared Gumet, architect from Mishosh.
Slide over just a little bit.
Architect from Mishoshik Turpin. We're here. First of all, I would like to say to all of you the impact of the contribution of $100,000 to the Belknap Mill for the restoration and renovation has made a significant difference in our success. We are just finishing up phase 1 of that project. For those of you, because of COVID, who haven't had the chance to come visit us, I hope you will. The improvements are remarkable, and without your contribution, we would not have been able to be successful. So I thank you very, very much for that generosity. I was looking at the mill from my seat, and it looks absolutely stunning. So thank you. The reason we're here tonight is actually with regard to the current footprint of the patio that is attached to the powerhouse. That footprint is historic. It reflects an original footprint of the mill. And what we'd like to do is we would like to expand that footprint to make the patio larger. And what we'd like to be able to do too is our plan is to dedicate that patio to Rod Dyer, not just for what he has contributed to the Belknap Mill, but certainly what he has contributed to community. I think what's particularly poignant is that Rod also, of course, was the mayor here in Laconia at one time. He's a Rotarian. And we have been working very closely with the Laconia Rotary with regard to the footprint for this patio, honoring all the work that they did in 1997 when the dedication of Rotary Riverside Park was made. So tonight we're here before you because we would like specifically to ask to increase the footprint of that patio space. We do have some very preliminary drawings, but tonight, which we will share with you, but tonight really it's about the expanding the footprint. Our partnership or collaborators are certainly with the Rotary, and we've also met with City Manager Myers and along with Amy Levichik from Parks and Rec. Her commissioners voted in support 100% of our plan for this project, as has Rotary. They supported 100% unanimously for this project. So we come to you today for a discussion around that lot line adjustment. Our timeline at this point is to break ground with approval in October. And we will do a groundbreaking ceremony, which will then launch our fundraising campaign. And then work will continue in the spring with opening of the park and the dedication of the park to the Rod Dyer Powerhouse patio in the spring. So I'd like to introduce Jared, who will share with you the property line adjustments and also some of the preliminary design plan.
Thank you, Karen.
Good evening, counselors.
Good evening, Jared. Welcome.
Thank you. Is it? Okay, sure. And I believe you have all received a digital copy of this. So like Karen said, this is a conceptual plan to date of the patio expansion. This line here represents the existing footprint of the patio, of the powerhouse. And so we would be extending the patio out and really kind of improving that public-private space so that both programming at the mill can utilize this as well as programming in and at the park to improve concert viewing and vice versa. With the expansion, we also create a side area for performances to happen on the patio so people could be sitting in the park and watching one of the Powerhouse Theater Collaborative's plays here at the mill. And additionally, it provides more flexible space for if somebody was renting the wedding in the mill out for a wedding or a reception or anniversary party, business event, they now have a great outdoor space that they would be allowed or be able to utilize for that function. And, you know, like Karen had mentioned, we're working really closely with Parks and Rec and with Rotary. It's very critical for us that we maintain and really enhance the existing planting and foliage at the property. So it's not like we would be introducing new foreign plantings to this. We're really working together to make sure that it has that beauty in each of the seasons that the park has today, just with kind of an enhanced footprint. That's kind of 1,000-foot level, I guess, maybe. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that may happen. We did also, if we just flip this over one, provide a much more roughed out footprint showing the existing property line and then the extension of the request for the property line adjustment to capture the patio. And that provides approximately a 5 to 6 foot buffer around the patio footprint to allow for any sort of maintenance now or in the future that may have to happen to the hardscape.
Thank you, Jared. I may have missed this, but what is the approximate square footage we're looking at declaring surplus here?
It is approximately 1,270 square feet.
Councilor Littman.
I know this is early to bring it up because we'd have to make a declaration of surplus to consider it, but I guess I have no objection to kind of what's being proposed. I guess whether it should be a sale of property versus a long-term lease or something, because, you know, it's very impressive what the Belknap Mill recovery has been in terms of leadership and getting things reinvigorated. I just concerned that given it's city property and a city park, whether we have to give up total control of it, should at some point long after we're all long gone, it not be able to be maintained or updated or what have you, that the city would retain some modicum of control of the use of that property if things didn't stay the way they are. Hope that they would, and there should be no issue if we did, but that's kind of my thoughts on it early.
So purely from the process standpoint, in checking with legal counsel, the guidance, the advice was to go through the declaration of surplus part first so that the public is noticed. People have a chance to comment at a public hearing in 2 weeks. But beyond there, to legal counsel, I basically said, you know, this is a friendly transaction. I think we're all pulling in the same way. What's the best way to accomplish this? You certainly could do a full-blown boundary line adjustment and a sale. But there's also an opportunity to do a lease where you identify, you know, meets and bounds, but you lease it, you could license it, you know, so you could do anything in between there. And the council retains full control over directing, me to negotiate and do that on the behalf. So definitely two things that would work just as easily would be a license and a lease. They would be subject to some renewal provisions along the way. And obviously one would think that the relationship long after we're all gone and different people might be in these seats all the way around would continue to be a friendly and positive. But I think to Councilor Lippman's point, if for some reason things, weren't working or things, interest was lost in the mill or whatever else might happen, that there's an opportunity for the city to regain that property if it's no longer for the intended use. So I think there's a way to accomplish this, but the declaration of surplus is a process that would need to be followed, and then we can get that guidance and hammer out the details.
Okay, great. Counselor Hamel.
Yeah, just a quick question, Jared. Looking at this, you're looking to go out roughly 42 feet out onto the lawn area.
Yes.
Okay. So now the portion of the lawn that goes back towards the mill.
Are you on the riverside?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Yep.
So you're going to be going out 42 feet. Is that going to take up almost all that area where the seating is for the shows and stuff, or
No.
will that still have quite a bit?
It actually the new extent of the patio really only goes to the farthest point of like the existing granite steps that are out there right now with the flower bed. So we're kind of taking that flower bed and patio and shifting it out kind of that equal distance.
So does that, where you have your lines here for where the patio would be, so the flower beds would be in front of this?
Correct.
Okay, so then that's going to chew up even more lawn, correct?
It will, but people will have the ability to sit up a little bit higher on the patio on a solid surface if they wanted to sit there and view or be part of the park programming.
Okay, so they'll be able to use that?
Yes.
One of the issues right now is if you wanted to participate in anything in the park, viewing wise, you can't see from the patio because of the large trees. And so we're working, those trees are beautiful, no doubt. But we're working with Rotary on how to best handle that so that you actually can view the bandstand from that patio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for your presentation and your work at the mill.
Thank you all.
Very much.
So just to go over this one more time, the city has received a written request from the Belknap Mill Society to declare a certain portion of land in the immediate proximity of the patio outside the powerhouse of the Belknap Mill as surplus, so the city could convey it to the Belknap Mill Society for expanded use of community events. How it's conveyed, what manner in which it's conveyed is still yet to be determined. But the first step right now would be to, and recommended by Scott Myers, is to City Council should schedule a public hearing for August 9th, 2021 to receive public input on declaring the property in proximity to the patio outside the powerhouse as surplus. So be looking for a motion to schedule this public meeting. Motion made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Lippman. Is there further discussion?
I just think in the public announcement that, as you described conveyance, I think we need to be clear that it isn't necessarily the form of a sale.
Okay,
I'll work with the clerk and make sure we have the appropriate language.
thank you. It's a good point, Councilor Lippman. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'd ask to indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The public hearing is scheduled for August the 9th, 2021. Thanks again. Going back up on the agenda under number 20, which is the city manager's report. Turn it over to Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So included in your package, you have 2 reports. One is the project update. So we continue to be active in and around various areas of Lakeport, Mechanic Street with water line going in, up in the Clinton Street area with park construction, doing both water and sewer before paving. Little challenges there just in the supply chain of stuff of someone like park construction, getting the materials they need to complete the water before they move on to the sewer or vice versa. So they're doing a little bit of ping ponging depending on.
Can I ask you to hold just a second? Did you find yours? Got it. Okay, go right ahead. Sorry about that.
So they're doing a little bit of ping-ponging back and forth as they are able to secure materials to keep that going. Franklin Street's pretty much completed except for some punch list items. And we are out to bid right now, and bids are due on Elm Street. We opened bids on Elm Street today with a desire to start that project in the very near future and focus on the area in front of Elm Street School to get that completed before the school year starts, and then work on the remainder of the project. We're also awaiting, and we think sometime in August, West, to hear on the TAP grant. So that was the Transportation Alternative Program grant that we applied for that multi-purpose trail on one side of Elm Street with a regular sidewalk on the other. That was the project that ranked highest out of the Lakes Region Planning Commission scoring. So then all of these top projects, if you will, from the other regional planning commissions, all were submitted on a statewide basis. So that's who we're competing with now. And I don't think it's necessarily limited to one project. They've got money to do several projects. So we're hopeful, but we should know the answer on that in a couple of weeks, whether we're able to do that full other side with a multi-purpose type of trail as well. The other thing that I really want to focus on, I know we've gone on a little bit tonight, so I'll be brief, is dealing with the Winnipesaukee River Basin project. And for those of you who've been on the council as long as I have, or longer than I have, you know that the flow metering was something that was started, I think back when I started here, so a good 10 years ago. The focus was on flow metering to determine what has changed over the years on the allocation of who pays what percentages towards the overall operation of the Winnipesaukee River Basin program. So long and short, each community is responsible for its local share of their sanitary sewer. Once it enters into the basin program, the interceptors, and all the way down to Franklin for the treatment plant, that's where we share. And Laconia picks up approximately 50% of the operational cost based on studies that were done years ago. So the desire to do new studies as growth has occurred and figure out where it was literally has been going on for 10 years. We finally have the data now complete. We started a couple of years ago. There were some areas that were being metered that had such low flow that it wasn't registering anything, and they had to go back and adjust the way they were metering certain areas. And this might be identified as one of the challenges the community have, and having to work our process that we pay all of the expense on through New Hampshire DES to operate the system. You know, there's things that we were looking to move along that just seem to take a long time. The positive is we've got the data. The board is ready to take a vote at the August meeting, the advisory board, to implement the new system. There's buy-in on everyone. They're going to phase it in over a 3-year period. So there's not immediate sticker shock to any one community, because there's going to be winners and losers as to who's picking up a larger share, who's picking up a smaller share. The good news for Laconia is we're going from a little over 49% to a little over 43% of the cost. And if you look in your budget book and look at what we budget for the Winnipesaukee River Basin, about $2.5 million. So to be saving 6%, that'll be phased in over 3 years on our share in the area of $150,000 or $175,000 by the time it's phased into it. So that doesn't mean that costs may not continue to go up with the program, and we may not realize it all, but at least our allocation is there, and there's a process in place for having this data reviewed on a 5-year basis, I believe is the recommendation, so that it will continue to be visited as, you know, growth may spike in different areas of the Lakes region and the communities that are involved in it. So a very long process. Glad we got to this point, and it will be phasing in over the next 3 years, but Laconia will be having a reduced share of the operational cost of the system going forward.
Thank you.
Second report tonight, and I'm going to correct some inaccurate information that I put into the economic development report. I was going through and scrambling in Nancy's absence, and under the May unemployment, I think I grabbed some data off of the seasonally adjusted versus what she probably had used as comps of the non-seasonally adjusted. So while those 1 point whatever numbers really look good, we probably need to be up about another 0.5% or a little bit over that in the low 2s for those numbers. So disregard the May numbers being in the 1 point whatever percent, and they'll be in the 2. Still an improvement over where they were in April. Really want to highlight the comparison to May of 2020, when you think of, you know, COVID really coming in and things shutting down. We were seeing everything from, you know, 15 to 19% unemployment rates, whether it was local or a couple of the largest cities, county and statewide. So quite a turnaround. Not quite as rosy as I've painted it here for you, though. Just take it up a notch. That's another way of saying I need Nancy back to help me out. Second page of that report, inflation still continues to run a little bit wild at this point. I think we're all seeing it in energy prices. We're seeing it in home prices. Certainly, you're seeing it in all types of commodities and building materials. And you're also seeing it, I think, just in the supply chain of how many different types of things you go to order and you can't get. I mean, I know I run into it in my home life. We run it into it in the city life. I already mentioned some of the construction companies with water and sewer components. We went to order 50 or 60 American flags 3x5 with aluminum poles to get them all set here. And John Gardner informed me when he went to place the order, the guy said, yeah, not so much. So there are challenges up and down the line that we're working through. I think some of that's driving the inflation. So I think, hopefully that'll work itself out in the coming months. But from the first couple of months of the year at less than 2%, the last 2 months we've been at 5% or higher. So we're at 3.4% halfway through the year. 6 more months of data to go for that. And then that will be the component of one of our tax cap calculations. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions anybody may have.
Seeing none. Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So moving right along now to 21, revisiting 21, we'll go to 21A, allocation of funds from the non-capital reserve account. Scott, would you just brief us on this?
Yes, so we had some recommendations of how to repurpose some of the funds that came from that school education stabilization account that has run its course and we no longer needed. So we took it out of there. We funded a couple of smaller dollar items at $20,000 for parks, mowers and equipment, and $50-something thousand for the first phase of the tree replacements downtown, and tried to fast track those so we could use that equipment in the spring. And the mowers are here, and between the drought and then going to too much rain, well, we got grass growing like crazy, but we're playing catch up there. These were the remainder of the recommendations out of that $300,000, if you will, the remainder, which already has been moved to the non-capital reserve account. These were items that I would have liked to have fit into the budget that you're adopting tonight. They're needed numbers, or they're needed projects, but they were unable just under the priorities. All of these came through the CIP committee to run through them quickly, repairing the deck membranes on Messer Street Bridge, which is needed. The $62,000 for the decking and the mooring poles at the docks would be our local share of the big grant, which we've approved through a public hearing a few weeks ago. I've submitted the certified copies of everything to New Hampshire DES, and that'll be working its way through the governor and council process sometime this fall. So this is the local share to that $162,000 that we're getting in that grant. $20,000 just to be dealing with some of the gravel roads and the ongoing needs over there to hopefully do more than just Band-Aid them after a heavy rain, to actually kind of get some life to them a little bit. And then the Weirs Boulevard stormwater is something that's needed not only for our watershed, but there's going to be a significant development down there that's already been approved through Brady Sullivan. They will be contributing a certain amount of money to road and drainage, and I believe a culvert improvement down there as well. And this is some added money when we go in to do all that construction on a part a little bit further down that wasn't impacted by the Brady Sullivan project. So those are the specific projects. All of these came through the CIP for request and just didn't make the final cut with what I had available in the budget that I presented to you.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Scott right now on what he's presented? Okay, seeing none, right now we'd be looking for a motion to authorize the allocation of funds from the non-capital reserve account as listed above, which is a total of $212,000. Approval will reduce the uncommitted non-capital reserve account balance to approximately $497,300. Did you have a question or?
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion. Thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilor Cheney has made the second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Signify. With 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. 21B has already been discussed. Moving along to item 22 under unfinished business. 22A is the second reading of Resolution 2021-08 relative to making authorized itemized appropriations for the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, terminating June 30th, 2022. There's a series of 3 motions here. I'll read every word if you'd like me to for the record, or we can move right along to go right ahead.
Maybe I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. There's no bottom line change on this resolution before you. The only adjustment that I made with Glenn is we increased the rooms and meals tax distribution revenue up once we knew what happened with the state budget, and we made a similar reduction in COVID federal funds transferred in. So the 2 washed out. So the bottom line of what you're voting on was what was presented, what went to the public hearing, but that is 1 revenue offset that we made internally. And then you do have the amended grant resolution for 2 last minute grants identified from the police department that I sent you the email on Friday. These are grants that we've had in the past. One is $60,000 for an opioid reduction under Granite Hammer, and the other one is $2,500 for bulletproof vests. So that one you will need to amend the grant. This first one you don't, but I just wanted to go on the record to let you know that we've offset 2 revenues there.
The amended grant is under 22B of the unfinished business.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So under 22A, right now I'll be looking for a motion to move the reading of this resolution in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Secondly, we're looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-08 relative to making itemized appropriations for the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Finally, we're looking for a motion to move and approve Resolution 2021-08 relative to making itemized appropriations for the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving along to item number 22B. Just make sure I get the correct one here.
Top one.
Everyone have a copy of this amendment based off of this. So we'll be referring to this sheet right here. So we'd be, right now, this is an amended motion, as the city manager just explained. We'll be looking to move. We'll be looking for a motion to move to amend Resolution 2021-09 to increase appropriations and revenues from $1,890,000 to $4,154,726 to allow for additional anticipated grants. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further discussion on that motion in front of us? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amended motion, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you. And we have another series of 3 motions. The first one is to move a reading of the resolution and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Secondly, I'm looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-09 relative to making itemized appropriations for anticipated grants for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating on June 30th, 2022. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And please, if I'm reading too fast or going too fast, slow me down and have me stop. I don't want to rush anybody through
Trying to
this.
help you
Okay? Fair enough.
No pressure.
A third motion we would be looking for is to move to approve Resolution 2021-09 relative to making itemized appropriations for anticipated grants for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Under item 22C, which is the second reading of Resolution 2021-10 relative to making itemized appropriations for the city enterprise funds, sanitary sewer fund, and waterworks. First motion would be a move to waive the reading of this resolution to read by title only. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor, raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second, I'd be looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-10 relative to making itemized appropriations for city enterprise funds, sanitary sewer fund and waterworks fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, we're looking for a motion to move and to approve the Resolution 2021-10 relative to making itemized appropriations for city enterprise funds, sanitary sewer fund, and waterworks fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Under item 22D on our agenda, this is the second reading of Resolution 2021-11 relative to making itemized appropriations for the Internal Services Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. First motion is a motion to waive the reading of the resolution and read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, indicate by raising your hand if you support the motion. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Second, we're looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-11 relative to making itemized appropriations for the Internal Services Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, on this item, we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-11 relative to making itemized appropriations for the Internal Services Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving right along to 22E. It's the second reading of Resolution 2021-12 relative to making itemized appropriations for the following city special revenue funds, Motorcycle Week Fund and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, ending June 30th, 2022. Looking for a first motion to waive the reading of this resolution and read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Secondly, I'll be looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-12 relative to making itemized appropriations for the following city special revenue funds, Motorcycle Week Fund and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, on this item, we're looking for a motion to move and approve Resolution 2021-12 relative to making itemized appropriations for the following city special revenue funds, Motorcycle Week Fund and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative. Well done. And 22G has been removed from the agenda. So 22F will be the final item here. This is the second reading of Resolution 2021-13 relative to making itemized appropriations for the city's 3 tax increment finance districts, Downtown TIF, Lakeport TIF, and Weirs TIF for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. First motion is to waive the reading of this resolution, read by title only, so made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, we're looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2021-13 relative to making itemized appropriations for the city's 3 tax increment finance districts, Downtown TIF, Lakeport TIF, and Weirs TIF for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Councilor Hamel, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-13 relative to making itemized appropriations for the city's 3 tax increment finance districts, Downtown TIF, Lakeport TIF, and Weirs TIF for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and terminating June 30th, 2022. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Well done, and thank you for your patience, Council. That being said, I'd like to adjourn the City Council meeting at 8:32 p.m. on July 26, 2021. Thank you very much, City Clerk. Mr. Myers?